Hey guys, Wolvie here, and this is the Celes Rework analysis video for Dissidio Final Fantasy Opera Omnia Global. Now, I actually have a backlog of a bunch of videos I need to post to the channel. I've been forgetful and busy at work as of late, so I should be posting every last video, not just for this part of the channel, but for other aspects of the channel. Like I said, I'm fortunate enough to have filmed them in advance, so that way at least it's there for me to post what I can. So with Celes, the same rules apply, with Emperor, with the disclaimer. Any opinion in this video is my opinion and my opinion only. Not only that, I will have both the Tonberry troop and the Dissidia database related info in the description below. So we're here in the banner where her LD makes its debut, alongside another banner where you can see Emperor's burst weapon alongside the remainder of Celeste's kit. Now we're gonna go into her particular LD first, because this is where Celes got her has the debut of her LD. And believe it or not, she also has an alternate costume, which I will be getting later on this week, because Celes is my girl. Nobody messes with my waifu like this. And fortunately, I do have Celeste's LD weapon. Thankfully, I didn't have to pity it. However, I spent quite a few resources trying to get it. But anywho, the name of her particular LD weapon is called Ragnarok, so some of you Final Fantasy 13 fans can probably rejoice. Now, the LD ability itself is called Freeze Dive. The affinity is called Magic Tech Wizardry, which is spelled correctly for the record. Now, what does Freeze Dive do? Now, you see here, this is the information about the ability itself. It is Ice Elemental, because that's how Celes rolls. And this is Magic Tech Ice Block. This is what it does. It's a trap very akin to people like Emperor and to another extent Vanille. So basically, now we're going to see certain aspects here with the changes to Brave Magic Absorb. This is Celeste's calling card. So basically, it says here, grants max bravery based on Brave Magic Absorb level. So you see all this stuff you see on your screen. So this is really freaking badass. And I have no shame in saying it. This is the 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3, and 3 out of 3 for Freeze Dive, sense of all this good stuff here. Now, this is one of the ones I really enjoy seeing, because you look at what it does to Celes and what it does to the team, it's like, dang! Where was she? And by that is that you see the 1 out of 3, 2 out of 3 is that this has the emphasis on the attack stat for Celes. And this is, again, now you see how I reacted as well as I did. It's because not only does it help with Celes, it also helps the party. She's one of those that's like, hey, I can take her now to more places. I don't have to rely on certain enemies to use her. That sort of thing. So, with that bit out of the way, we're going to jump right into the character adjustments for Celes, and that's not the only thing you see with Skill 2, which is Runic. Now, this is why it is an overhaul rework for Celes. She's probably one of the very few in the game where one of the reworks is a massive overhaul. This is no exception. This is Crystal Strength level 10 passive ability called HP Damage Guard Up. Now this is HP Damage Attack Up. Now it kind of switches how you think of Celes from back then to now. And that's not the only thing that got reworked. Adjustment number 2 is the Crystal Strength level 15 passive ability. It used to be called Brave Initiative. Now it's called Buff Boost Up. And this is not all. Crystal Strength level 30 passive ability is called Brave Reprieve. Now it's called Brave Guard Up. Now we get to see more of the rework itself. Now you're going to see, this is skill 1, this is Shine Edge extension. She gets 2 additional uses, so the total number of uses of Shine Edge now for Celes is at 9. And it also has this. Ice Imperil, folks. Now we have here Crystal Strength, the more information on the skill 2 extension. And now you see here, I do want to put some emphasis on the very bottom of the screen here, you see, is that when it comes down to the HP attack plus for Celes, this now gives her, believe it or not, a way to get the provoke / lock going on the opponents without having to resort to the LD, the additional ability, or skill 2's HP attack plus. It gives Celes that and an additional option right there. Now, like I said with Emperor, and I do have to be completely fair, there are some things with Celes I'm like, okay, she's got 2 reworks. The second rework is a bit of an overhaul rework, but what are her problems? Now, before I get to her problems, this was an overhaul rework Celes desperately needed. Because before, she had this big time niche where if the opponent was dealing magic damage, bring Celes in, she makes it a joke. However, you couldn't take her to other types of fights because of her niche. Now with that bit out of the way, the thing is with Celes, what does this overhaul rework do for her? It means you could take her to more content. And that's the short end of the version. She does so much now, it makes her leagues more desirable, and especially on a long-term basis. Because, what I'm about to paraphrase is somebody I know on Facebook that knows a little bit more on Celes than I do. Because they play both JP and Global, is that the game is eventually going into a somewhat different direction of sorts. Now, for those of you who are big time Gladio fans, this particular direction kind of puts him, not as desirable because of Celeste's second rework. Because of what she could do. And the thing, and part of what she could do, the chanting, the support, all that stuff, is that she becomes the first character with a sustainable means to enchant the ice element onto everybody. Because we didn't have this before on Global until this one's secondary rework. It is amazing what they've done to her now. With having a sustainable 4 ways to enchant the ice element to the party, especially if the opponent is weak to that element. Now, I saw a video on YouTube, I think it's Faye and Nifa's. Celes, for some reason, made Lightning in 7 work on a Lufenia against Divine Ramuh. Now, that's something you might want to let sink in for a few minutes. Now, what are her problems to this date? Now, the thing is that her LD ability remains her only way to deal some format of AoE HP damage. And the reason why that's kind of sad in a sense is that it's the way, the thing is with Celes is she absolutely has to have her LD. Now, granted, any unit who has her LD, yeah. Now, granted, the thing is with Celes is that, her LD deals AoE HP damage, but it's the only way, and she needs something else besides that to deal reliable AoE HP damage. Now, the only thing that kind of saves her in a sense is that the lock that she used to have with Runic it's like now she has ways to deal like the lock on everybody, not just one person at a time. So what I particularly enjoy about the whole thing, like in the sense of like AoE HP damage, is that the fact that her LD is like the only way she does that, it kind of balances the whole thing, her kit out, because fortunately the lock, she now has multiple ways to, you know, go after it without having to rely on skill 2. Now, what I particularly enjoy about Celeste's LD weapon in particular is the fact that when it comes to, if you use her LD, she gets 2 more stacks of the runic-based buff. Which is really good because, again, you don't have to rely on skill 2 as much. But then again, I would like to see, you know, more of, you know, AoE HP damage from Celes. It's not just her freaking skill, the LD ability. Now, if Celes were to get another rework, and there's not much I could really suggest, other than with skill 2, she needs more uses of skill 2 because, honestly, she doesn't have the means to conserve skill uses. Now, granted, her LD gives her 2 stacks of the runic-based buff. She also gets something going with her additional ability. She has the HP attack plus that can provoke, and skill 2, of course, the main source, but she needs something like, she needs more skill uses of runic, or alternatively, have the LD tied to skill 2 in the sense of, you use the LD, you recover, and use the skill 2 back, which will further help with the longevity, because right now, even with the LD, and even with the proper force of micromanagement, you can still run the chance of being careless, and honestly, she can run out of steam super fast because of the lack of means to conserve skill uses. Now, with skill 1, I would like to see, you know, like, I would like to, like, see that, you know, have, like, give it the Sarah effect, where it's, like, you have all the brave damage onto one person, but for some format of, like, AoE HP damage, being that AoE Splash would be the best thing, in my personal opinion. And a little bit of improvement on the potencies overall on skill 1. But I think there still needs to be some work done on skill 2, mainly more skill uses, or, like, stuff like that. Now, with that bit out of the way, Celes got an overhaul rework that makes her quite desirable for some time to come. Now, with that bit out of the way, she still lacks reliable means to do AoE HP damage outside the LD, and basically if you don't have her LD, you're kind of screwed, despite her overhaul rework. Because in all honesty, it's like she's one of those characters where if you're careless with her, she's going to run out of gas fast. And the thing is, she does need some format of, like, skill conservation, where it's like, you can do certain things, but it's like people can get careless and want to end things right away. And that's just a little heartbreaking in its own right. But overall, with Celes, it's like, she becomes one of the most desirable characters in the game for quite a while because of the overhaul rework, but you definitely have to have her LD to really make the best out of her. Otherwise, she's going to run out of gas fast. And that's all I have to say about Celes Share for this video. With Wolvie here, signing off. I will catch you all on the flip side.